Hi there, I'm Matt Pepper. I'm a business value consultant. I've been working at WalkMe now for just over 6 months. Before then, I have worked in analytics and data as a vendor, as a sales engineer, but also on the dark side, away from the dark side. And we're working with companies such as Unilever, Accenture, Three, the telco. So yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey to get to where I am so far. I'm going to start off with presenter's nightmare with a white screen. A little bit about my family life, which is I have 3 children. I've got 2 boys who've both got autism and ADHD, which makes life a little bit interesting. Intelligence-wise, they're very, very sharp, but from a social and emotional perspective, it is incredibly difficult for them sometimes to understand things. And Thomas, my now 9-year-old boy, he has a fantastic brain, but he's not very good at losing things. None of us like to lose, really. But I was trying to be a really good parent and show him. He wanted to go onto his iPad. So I said, let's play a game. Managed to get noughts and crosses as the conversation piece. And he said, if I win, can I have my 30 minutes on an iPad? And I said, okay, yeah, noughts and crosses. So we started the game. We got to this point, and he said, so if I win this, I can get 30 minutes. And I went, yeah, thinking this is going to be a great learning point for him. And he did this, which to me was, first of all, I was trying to be a better parent and then kind of had to step away from it and look at it objectively. And I thought, it's a really clever way of looking at things. He got his half an hour because I couldn't say no, because I didn't actually come up with the rules of the game enough to say you couldn't do that. But for this presentation, I was thinking, how can I link this one to it? And it was more down to the fact that this is essentially what happens with every single project that I've worked on, regardless of the technology, regardless of the industry, is that people do things that you don't expect. They don't follow the processes. They don't necessarily follow the rules. They just want to get the objective done. And that's what we see a lot in all of the presentations and projects that we get, which is, this is from Deloitte, but I think McKinsey have done something very similar, is that 70% of digital transformations either fail, or even if they do succeed, it takes up to 3 years to realize that, some of the objectives that project set out, which is remarkable. The fact that we're still in this situation. And once again, I've seen multi-billion-dollar deals collapse purely down to the fact that it's just missing some things. So there are roughly 3 different types of organizational change. So there's the developmental one, which is when you have an existing product and you're trying to improve the situation. Then there's the transitional one, which is when you've implemented or about to implement a big piece of technology like a Workday, a Salesforce, a ServiceNow, and you're trying to improve the situation from where you are. And then there's the truly transformational ones. Those are the ones that are big, multiple things, multiple systems, and trying to transform a culture as well as the values. And that's no small thing. Now, you've probably seen a curve similar to this in many, many things, and this is the digital adoption curve. Now, those first 2 ones, he says, going back, the developmental and the transitional ones, that's pretty much what happens when people come to talk to WalkMe and the digital adoption area. They either are about to deploy something, let's say a ServiceNow, and they're trying to train lots and lots of people, or you've already got it and it is, oh no, it's not working, something's really bad, in fact, it's got worse. Those are the random digital adoption, or my random acts of digital, or a reactive as in, oh no, something's gone wrong, we need to do something fast. That's pretty much 95% of our customers at the moment. And that's something that we are looking to improve, and we want to start them looking forward to say, how do we expand this? How do we look across multiple systems, multiple business processes to actually improve the situation, so therefore these things don't just start collapsing? anyone who's anyone, and I think this is older than, I think I had hair when this was invented, people, process, technology. So technology can be deployed. Processes can be measured before and afterwards. But the one factor that is the biggest factor is the people side. That's something that is very difficult to measure, and lots of people are different, and is normally the biggest factor on the success or failure of a project. So if you have a project that has 150 employees, and the success of that project or process is them adopting that process, you've got to be able to measure those things. You've got to be able to see how well. It's not just it's been deployed, hooray, let's all go have a sandwich. This is about how people are actually changing the way they are doing things and how to measure that. So the three areas are the speed of adoption, the utilization, so therefore how much they are actually changing it and using it, and the proficiency, so how well they are actually using those things. So that's not just training. That's obviously part of the person is providing that knowledge, but it's also about the fact that they are turning that knowledge into action. This is something when I used to work in IT, which is the picnic error. Problem in chair, not in computer. So how can we change this? How can we actually change or remove these picnic errors, or at least reduce them? And this is what OCM, or Organizational Change Management, is all about. It's a framework for managing the effect of new business processes or technology, or put simply, it's about the people side of change. So whether that is a technology, obviously I'm focusing on the digital side of things, but OCM is much, much wider than just what I'm talking about. The key, let's say that the key methodology that is followed is from PROCE, which is the ADKAR. So that's awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So the awareness, so first of all, knowing that a change is going to come, which is quite key, as opposed to it just being done to people. That obviously people need to want to be able to make that change as well. So creating a desire, I don't think we can help with that one. That's something different. But from knowledge onwards, WalkMe in particular, but digital adoption wider, is being able to expand, not just doing an online training or a learning management tool, but it's also about transforming that knowledge into that ability and guiding people, and obviously across not just one tool or one process, but being able to move all the way through different processes. So for example, if it is a finance product, can you raise a PO? Can you go and get the right pieces of information, file them, and then get the approval? Can you do all of that in a simple way and make as few errors as possible, so therefore all of these transactions go through? For a help desk system, so I've mentioned ServiceNow previously, for a help desk system, do you have all the key pieces of information, whether that is the person inputting the data saying I've got a problem, or the things that are being passed on and may have different inputs from different systems? So that's another area where we would help and guide people through. Now, WalkMe has been referenced as a sat nav. I think is a really good concept. Is really simple to get to, which is for a sat nav, you don't need to always look at it. It's there. You put your end destination and it will guide you all the way. But as I do with most sat navs, I kind of pay attention to it only really to make sure I'm going in the right direction. And right at that end, those last 5-10 minutes where I'm trying to find exactly where I'm going, that's when I really focus on the sat nav. And pretty much that is what we do for a business process. Now, traditionally, we've done that through one system, but over the last few years, we've realized that we can hop between different systems and continue that journey for your end users. That is something that is just so incredibly powerful, and has a lot of enterprises have really taken note of this. However, I don't think the analogy stops there. I would say we are more like Google Maps. So that was my journey to go and see you guys. Google Maps captures all the information in the background. Now, that is something that WalkMe also does. So using that analogy still, it looks at the information, it looks at the journey, it looks at all the other roads, the inputs, has there been a crash, is there anything else, and then moves and adjusts accordingly. So your end users, the drivers, can actually avoid all those pitfalls. And we can do that too. And that's something that I think is fantastic for an enterprise. If you've got a business process and you realize that people are inputting data in incorrectly, or no, this data field has to be input, so people put a dot, and yes, I know, I've done that before as well. I've put a dot and that's it. That's not really going to help anybody. So what we can do is look at those things, make that analysis. We can also say, oh, we've got different types of users. Some people may want to go on the motorway. Some people might want to avoid the motorway. People learn things differently. And that we have the ability to characterize those demographics and provide different journeys for those business processes from one place to another. The ultimate response is then the end user gets a fantastic experience catered towards them. But from an analytics and data perspective in the background, the business is learning and improving constantly. On to WalkMe. So we split, and I've been in many companies that have something similar to this, so I will explain these a little bit. There's the data, experience, and action. Probably data is the biggest point, just because we're looking at this. We sit on top, we are a SaaS product, so we sit on top pretty much any web-based tool. And some other ones as well from a customization perspective. But big companies such as SAP, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, those are our main get-tos, but by no means everything that we do. We look at that data, we can analyze the usage, we can see what systems you have, and then actually make recommendations, as in we can see that this process or this product is causing the biggest problems. We've recently announced a partnership with Celonis. So from an RPA perspective and also from a data analysis perspective, you can actually look at the information that makes suggestions. We can sit with that and actually help you to make that, to actually guide your users. So that data piece, that's sort of our core, and it's from an analytics perspective, I think is absolutely fascinating. The experience, I've kind of explained that, but I'll show you some of those things as well. The action side, that is action from a back-end perspective, so you looking at those processes and making tweaks. But we can also automate things for those annoying processes. Whether it is when I joined WalkMe, we had Workday. Never used Workday before. I just logged into our intranet site and typed need to book some holiday. It said, okay, so what holiday? What type of holiday is it? Is it normal? So yeah, it's PTO. Could I have it from this date to this date? And then it automatically logged me in, went straight into Workday and plugged all the key bits of information I wanted to, and then said, is that what you wanted? And I was like, yeah, that was fantastic. Clicked approve, and it just went straight through to Workday and it did everything for me. That was fantastic. I went, just how long would have taken me, never using a system before, finding the right fields, and it shaves minutes off lots of processes. So that's something called an action bot. Phenomenally clever, really, really, really useful. And yes, here's a lovely pie chart and a flywheel, just to kind of demonstrate probably the weight of things that we do. So we do the evaluation, and obviously we do this, and I think there's another level. There are different pieces of our tool which are all kind of linked together, and we discover, do the analysis, do those business processes, find out those key areas, and it could be just one or two processes or one or two things that we do first, just to kind of understand the issues, and then you can deploy them. We are a no-code editor, so we give the editor to yourselves. You have the development. We've got professional services, but we are a software team, not a services team. So you can actually build these things and kind of build the workflows and then iterate on them, because I think that's the key thing. It's not just something that's done. You will look at it, you will do the analysis, you will refine your processes. If you have to come back to us every time you want to make a refinement, that's going to just take too long and too expensive. So you have that access to do so. You have that editor, and then you can refine those processes and build on them. So you can actually look at those things and expand on them, look at different departments, jump from one application to one application. All of those things are done through that iterative process. Okay, so from these are just a kind of a few highlights on the tool. So the data perspective, one of them I think is phenomenal is the fact that we can actually create funnels. So we can do who uses WalkMe, who doesn't use WalkMe. So therefore, based upon that tool, you can do the analysis to see where things are actually coming through, things that are actually being used, some things that aren't being used, or areas where you think you need to change. So that's really decent piece of analysis. They're really quite useful. Now, the business processes thing, I think, for me, being an ex-business analyst, this is something that is just truly phenomenal. We can map processes, not, like I say, just through one system like I did with Workday, but when you have to jump from different process and different systems, trying to remove the need for all those manual workarounds. That's really quite amazing. If you can remove or reduce the number of Excel spreadsheets that are created because either people don't understand the tool or just can't get it done in a most appropriate way, that is going to save time and effort for the end users, as well as improve the processes from a business perspective. I think Excel is an incredibly powerful tool, but unfortunately, the number of cottage industries that become cities is quite phenomenal. So for that business processes, being able to look at those, you can tag them and measure them, and then you can actually see the improvement over a longer period of time. And this is the one, probably should have been right at the front of these ones. These are, and it's a little bit small, these are the different systems. So you could actually connect all these things and just do the monitoring of that information. So you can actually see the utilization, the usage, and some potentially how painful the areas are. So therefore you could pick the application that you'd want to deploy WalkMe onto first. This is relatively recent. It's called UI Intelligence. This is really quite phenomenal when you're trying to find out where issues go. If you've got a form like we have on this screen here, and you want to actually see where people are going wrong or inputting things incorrectly, this will actually show you where people are missing things or inputting a file name incorrectly or a customer's name incorrectly, or the fact that people are just not doing stuff. What you can then do is actually provide highlights through WalkMe to say, have you forgotten this bit, or that's not the correct format for a customer ID. So you can add all of those things in there, which are, depending on how you wish it, you can either make it as a subtle suggestion or just be there if people want to check, or you can enforce it so people go, are you sure this doesn't look right? So you can actually stop people from progressing until they've actually done a proper review. So from an action perspective, so this is like that automation. So if you are going through, let's say, a ServiceNow perspective, and you want to input the correct levels of information, I must admit I'm still learning ServiceNow from our side, and trying to find the right selection of fields in order to get to the right department ultimately is incredibly difficult. So therefore, what you can do is, based upon the filters you want or the areas that you're looking at, you can apply WalkMe on top of that. So therefore, and pre-filter information that you want to look at, or filter things down. It's incredibly useful. It provides a lot more speed and, more importantly, a lot more accuracy for what you're deploying. This is the editor, so it's called Shield here. But basically, if your system is updated, so let's say Salesforce is updated, I know ServiceNow does 2 updates a year. What you can do is instead of having to customize everything within the underlying system, you can actually just make a few tweaks within WalkMe. Some of it we do, and I know Salesforce does this in particular. It makes a change. Our UI actually notices that a button has been moved or it's changed or a process, underlying process has changed. So all of those things automatically adjust. So then you don't have to do huge amounts of customization within Salesforce. You can just do it within the UI within WalkMe. You can then also, it'll also say, oh, these things have changed. These are the suggestions, because we're working with all these big companies as well. And it means that you can deploy a more vanilla version of that product and then just make the small tweaks within WalkMe, which is a much, much easier and far more cost-effective way of deploying things. And so from experience, this is just a simple example of how it looks. So providing guidance, you can say, what do you want me to do? It clicks and then moves those things down. So you can actually look at the guidance. You can actually put and say, click here, do this. You've probably been on these kind of tutorials as well. So you can provide training, but you can also provide within a process key pieces of training, just focused that micro piece of process down. So oh, what do I do now? Click here. Oh, brilliant. That's good. How about now? Click here. So those are the key things from a guidance. That's the end user's experience. Some of that can be automated, but some of it can be clicked. If you don't have a process, you don't even know where to start, we provide in-application help. So that is that guidance. You can create a task. Some of it can be automated. Some of it might just guide you through those things. It really depends on the complexity of that business process, whether you jump between different things. And this was my favorite one, which was the action bot. I think we're only just beginning to scrape the surface of what we can do with this stuff. Being able to jump between things, being able to get things automated for you, that will just reduce the number of painful manual pieces, processes that are very laborious can just be automated very, very quickly. From an application adoption perspective, so here are some of our customers. The key one I think down here is Sage. I thought was really quite a useful one. So within, they are using ServiceNow. ServiceNow is on the screen, but that's because they are also a customer of ours. They reduced the number of IT support tickets by 40% by deploying things. So then what we're doing is putting it within the key system. But some of them are the how do I, or I've done this wrong. They've reduced the amount of internal tickets just to IT systems purely by deploying WalkMe. So 40% is an enormous amount. And this is something that I'm particularly proud of because I've been involved just a bit, but not by much. But so Gracie works at Nestle. She is the senior global product manager. And is one of our strongest advocates. Phenomenal thought leadership in this area. We're quite proud that she chose WalkMe. But the key factor is she realized that it's people we need to help, and we need to make sure that IT people focus on the product. But how can we actually help the end users? And that is essentially the whole department, the digital adoption platform area within Nestle. They are using WalkMe and they're now white labeling it, and they're having a desktop helper, and they are then being able to do this, and they're thinking about how to deploy this upon everything. So it's the first place people look for anything, whether it's a file, whether it's a business process. This is the first place you should be able to look for stuff, and it should guide you through everything. So it's a consistent use case, completely customizable, so it doesn't look anything like blue boxes. It's a Nestle branded product. That's the way that they're looking at things, and I think is really, really powerful. She did present to us on our Realize event If you search for Walk Me Realize, she did a fantastic presentation on that, and it's available on a video. This is also the Intelligent CXO, so you can look at that. It's their latest e-magazine. You can read a little bit more about that process there. And that is it. So I kept it nice and short and sweet for today. Those are my contact details, but are there any questions?